South Bend with Purdue leading 13-12. Notre Dame's John Pinelli recovered Punzel's partially blocked kick and raced 70 yards to the promised land, putting the Fighting Irish out in front 18-13 in a free-scoring thriller-diller. Leading 21-13, Notre Dame's quarterback, Frank Perpuka, faded back and flipped a 14-yard pass to Bill Gay, but the Irish drive stalled. In the closing minutes of play, Zimajewski of Notre Dame stole Bob DeMoss's pass for another Irish touchdown. With the final seconds ticking off and trailing 28-20, the Boilermakers of Purdue fought on desperately, picking up 35 yards on a pass interference ruling, which set them up in dangerous scoring position. Purdue scored, but Notre Dame won 28-27. Opening strong against the Texas Longhorns, North Carolina scored as Charlie Justice passed to end Art Williams. Continuing the attack, Carolina's Jose Rogers handed off to Bill Flamish, who gained 13 yards. Setting up another scoring threat by way of the air lanes, Choo-Choo Charlie Justice passed to Big Bill Weiner. On the succeeding play, Justice flipped another aerial to Bob Cox for the TD. Flashing the form that won him All-American selection, Justice ripped off a 7-yard gain. Hayes tallied, and the Tar Heels upset the Longhorns 34-7. At Champaign, with West Point leading Illinois 7-0, All-American Bobby Stewart set up the Army in position for a second score with a brilliant 58-yard run. Army's Gil Stevenson plunged through the Illini line 11 yards for a touchdown, making it West Point 14, Illinois nothing. Continuing the pulverizing ground attack, Cadet Winfield Scott swept his end and scampered 72 yards before being overtaken by the Illini secondary and knocked out of bounds on the 6-yard line. Buchanan of the Army bucked over for another score. Fighting back grimly, Illinois took to the air as Kruger faded back, found his receiver, and passed to Kasulis for a touchdown. But the final score was Army 26, Illinois 21. At Franklin Field, Philadelphia, Rogel of Penn State hit the line, pivoted off a Penn tackler, and sprinted 44 yards for Penn State's first touchdown in the battle between the traditional rivals. With the Penn line opening up a sizable hole, Bagnell went through right guard, cut to his left, and galloped 25 yards before being forced out of bounds. Pressing the attack, Bagnell tossed an aerial to Carmen Falcone, who was tackled inches short of a touchdown. And then the Pennsylvania thrust failed. Slashing back, Penn State took to the air as Petchel passed to Tamburro, who picked up 52 yards before being nailed by Penn's All-American Chuck Bednarik. On the final play of the game, Penn State scored when Petchel passed to Rogel, who made a terrific catch in the end zone. Watch him. Final score, Penn State 13, Penn nothing. At Austin, on the third play from scrimmage, All-America Doak Walker of SMU faked a pass, skirted his end, and with top-flight blocking, raced up the sideline 67 yards for a touchdown. With Texas on the offensive now, Campbell faded back to pass, couldn't find a receiver, and ran the ball back up the alley for 15 yards. Pressing a ground attack, Campbell pitched out to Borneman, who drove through center for 7 yards. And then on the next play, Borneman climaxed a 68-yard drive to score for Texas. SMU displayed razzle-dazzle ball handling as Roberts picked up 6 yards around right end on a double reverse. Completing a scoring drive, Walker passed to Blakely, who lateraled a rope for the TD, and SMU won 21-6. On hand at Yankee Stadium for the intersectional game between the Black Knights of West Point and the Stanford Indians from California were General and Mrs. Ike Eisenhower. Here, too, is General Maxwell Taylor, superintendent of the Academy, with Mrs. Taylor. The future generals took the field in quest of their 7th consecutive victory this season. With overwhelming power, Army opened up the red-shirted line of Stanford for Gil Stevenson, who galloped 45 yards to the Indians' 10-yard line. Stevenson bucked over for the first Army touchdown. The West Point quarterback, Galiffa, faded back and passed to right end Parrish, who picked up considerable yardage before being hauled down from behind. On another pass attempt, Galiffa let fly a long heave into the end zone, but overshot his intended receiver, much to the dismay of the Army mule. Again taking to the airwaves, Galiffa tossed to Bobby Jack Stewart, who gained 17 yards. On a reverse, Stewart skirted his left end for another touchdown as West Point crushed Stanford. At Cambridge, on the first play from scrimmage, Hal Maffey of Harvard stunned Yale rooters by breaking into the clear and outracing the Eli secondary 80 yards for a touchdown in the 65th renewal of the ancient gridiron rivalry. Fighting back valiantly, Yale picked up 10 yards on a pass from Tex First to John Satir. Exploding off left tackle, Yale's Bird Nadherney bruised forward for 15 yards. And then quarterback First sneaked over for a touchdown, tying the score. Putting on the pressure, Noonan of Harvard faded back under excellent protection and passed to Fiorentino, who outjumped the Yale secondary to snare the ball for a 29-yard gain. Continuing the downfield march, Roach ripped off 36 yards for Harvard on a sweep inside his right end, putting the ball on the Eli 3-yard stripe. Harvard won 20-7 as Captain O'Donnell racked up the final tally. At South Bend in the opening period, Notre Dame staged a sustained march as Pinelli gained 10 yards against the Northwestern Wildcats. Right end Leon Hart picked up 11 yards on a deceptive end-around play. Pep Pinelli bucked over for the touchdown, and the Fighting Irish led 6-0. Now watch this play as the ball seems to turn into a hot potato with everybody getting into the act. Trapuka's pass was finally snared by Zurovlev of Northwestern, but then he fumbled and Notre Dame finally recovered. This time the Irish weren't so lucky as Tom Worthington intercepted Trapuka's pass and returned the ball 5 yards before slipping out of bounds. But it was tit for tat as Don Burson's pass for Northwestern was intercepted by Bill Gay of Notre Dame. As the third period ended, Trapuka again faded back and shot an aerial, which was intercepted by Murakowski of Northwestern on his own 8-yard line. On a brilliant run back of 92 yards, Murakowski scored a touchdown and put the Wildcats out in front 7-6. And now, with seconds of play remaining, it looked like the end of Coach Frank Leahy's victory streak. But Landry gained 11 yards for the Irish through center. And then Bill Gay smashed over a moment later to score, and Notre Dame won 12-7.